Welcome to the Business Finishing School Podcast. Stop the insanity, eliminate the chaos, bring simplicity, probability, and leverage as operating values into your business and personal life so you can do more, earn more, and improve your relationships. This is Business Growth Simplified. Here's your host, Business Finishing School founder, Rick Sapio.
Hello, this is Rick Sapio. Here's another edition of the Business Finishing School podcast. As you know, the three legs of the BFS stool are principles and tactics, mindset, and financial success. Today, I will be focused on mindset. And as often is the case, I like to start with a quote. Put your heart, mind, and soul into even your smallest acts. This is the secret of success. And that's by Swami Sivananda. Put your heart, mind, and soul into even your smallest acts. This is the secret of success. And again, that's by Swami Sivananda. I have no idea who that is, but I like the quote. I feel like the margins in life are gone. So we really don't have space in our lives to stop and really think about having an impact or making our smallest acts, whether it's cleaning your bathroom or leaving a voicemail for a friend or calling a relative and telling them that you love them. Are we putting our heart, mind, and soul into everything? I don't know. I mean, I would think that as I watch how completely overwhelmed the vast majority of us are, I would say that that part of life is gone. I would suspect that this quote was probably written years ago. And then it makes me sad. Why is it that we don't have time to put our heart, mind, and soul into even our smallest acts? Which leads me to the purpose of this podcast. I'm doing this podcast a little bit before Thanksgiving. And as I think about Thanksgiving, I think about who am I going to be eating with? Who am I going to see? How am I going to feel? And I'm already having consternation and some negative reactions to some of the people that I might see around the table at Thanksgiving. But I've been introduced to a word recently, or I should say reintroduced to a word recently, that goes all the way back to Greek times. And the word is flourishing. And in fact, when back in the day, Socrates and Aristotle, etc., they used a different word because they didn't speak English, but the English translation is flourishing. They talked about what are the virtues, if used in conjunction, would create flourishing. And one of those virtues that they talked about, again, it's an English translation, but it's the virtue of magnanimity. Magnanimity, not magnanimity, magnanimity. And magnanimity is a combination of humility and action. I like to define magnanimity as the gap between how we all live and what our potential is in God's eyes, in our Creator's eyes. What is our potential? And that potential gets filled with magnanimity. In other words, are we living a magnanimous life? Are we making the most of the gifts that we were born with? Or are we not? Are we looking at life and saying, I just want to get by, I've got my Netflix account, I've got my shows to watch, I've got my phone, I'm all good. But a magnanimous person starts touching on this concept of flourishing. And I'm going to give you the BFS mindset version of flourishing. I believe that the people that I meet in life who are flourishing have done all the work. They've done the work to discover what their purpose is. They've owned that purpose. They've decided, this indeed is my purpose, and this is the choice that I'm going to make for the rest of my life. Almost like choosing a spouse. When you choose a spouse, 3 billion people are no longer an option to be your spouse. So flourishing begins with, in my view, and this is using the BFS principles-based approach to getting things done. You start with being crystal clear on your purpose. You turn that purpose into a catalyzing statement. You then have values that support that. You have a strategy to live your life and execute in your business. And then you have goals, both short and long term. And when and only when all of these things line up, your short-term goals align with your long-term goals, which align with your strategy, which is, if you didn't watch that module, it's a good one. That aligns with your values, and you're using your values for values-based decision-making. That all aligns with your catalyzing statement, which aligns with your purpose. And when you live a life in accordance with that you declared, you start to touch on flourishing. And when you're flourishing, you create margin in your life. And what I mean by margin, time between events. You're not rushing from one phone call to one text to one event to whatever, to a plane. And then you could put your heart, mind, and soul into even your smallest acts. This is the secret of success. That's the quote we started with. So I would like you, from a mindset perspective, to think for yourself, what does flourishing look like to me? I don't know if I believe everything Rick's telling me, but let me ask you a question. What does it look like to you? Come up with your own definition of what flourishing is. Maybe it's not the virtue of magnanimity. Maybe it's the virtue of hope, or the virtue of love, or the virtue of acceptance, or the virtue of honesty. I don't know. But to me, in the way I look at the world, I believe that all of us have this magnanimity potential, this potential to be far more, to do far more, to impact far more. And so when and only when we begin to touch what our true potential is, then and only then do we start opening up margin. Because what happens is, and I've seen this happen so many times, even in my life and others' lives that I witness, when I'm on purpose, when I'm honoring my values, all of a sudden margin is created because I don't have time for stupidity, toxicity, bad habits, bad relationships, bad business deals. I just say no. And sometimes it's automatic. You start to get into a zone where you repel the things that don't align. Successful people build exponential growth underneath them, because the more successful they get, the more they begin to flourish, the more things that don't align bounce off of them. And you've seen it with yourself. So I'm going to ask you, as we approach Thanksgiving, think about margin. Think about being available to the people that are around you next week, or whenever your Thanksgiving is, whenever you're listening to this. And even if it's not Thanksgiving, how can you make yourself available to this way of thinking, this mindset, so that you have margin to be present to the people you really care about? Because what happens is, and this happened with me many times, is when I don't have margin being space available, whether it's Thanksgiving or any holiday or any meeting for that matter, if I don't have margin, the people around me know it, and I lose my impact. So, first point of this podcast is put your heart, mind, and soul into even your smallest acts. This is the secret to success. Zoom out from that quote. Get crystal clear on your purpose and values. If you haven't done this work, do the work. It's the most important work you can possibly do. I had a friend, this is a very recent story. His name is, I don't want to say his name because he might listen and get mad at me. I said, I am sick and tired of you telling me that you don't know your purpose, your catalyzing statement, and your values. You've been telling me for years that you're going to do this work. I said to him, I'm not getting off the phone until you have your purpose, catalyzing statement, and your three main values to make decisions from. And he was thinking, we're going to be on the phone for a week. I said, go. 23 minutes after I said go, he had a purpose statement, he had a catalyzing statement, and he had three core values. And I felt his DNA shift on that call. Like literally, for the first time in a really long time, he knew why he was alive. And I guarantee you that after that conversation, he had margin in his life, because now he was excited, he was present, and he was available to people to put his heart, mind, and soul into even his smallest acts. So I want to encourage you from a mindset perspective to embrace what I'm saying, or your version of what I'm saying. Put it on the ground as we embark on this holiday season. Create margin in your life by doing so, and be present to the people that you love. Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Finishing School podcast, where we teach you business growth simplified. For more information on Business Finishing School or their Business Growth Summit event, visit businessfinishingschool.com.